It's Friday afternoon. I'm here with Mike Speirs from the Elite Group in Southern California, and actually, they're all throughout California at this point. Uh, they do a ton of inspections. They're the largest inspection company in the state by not a little, and they do a great job. And they, like I, today have received and been made aware of the new California Association of Realtors Home Inspector Certification Program, and it should give you just like a minor case of diarrhea to read what they've stated. And I love car. I'm a car supporter. I pay a bunch of money to car. I'm involved in their zip forms. So when you look and you're picking a home warranty company, there's only four choices there. We're one of them. But from a home inspection standpoint, you have a lot of choices. How many inspectors are in your local market? If you had gun to your head, estimate how many inspectors does the Elite Group compete with in Southern California?
Well, Elite Group alone has over 81 inspectors, full-time onboarded W-2 inspectors. And so that's quite a number already. But that doesn't account for the hundreds upon hundreds of other multi-inspector firms or single-man operations that are running throughout the entire state. So there's about 25 to 26,000 transactions in California every month, I believe. And so there's quite a bit of work to go around.
Yeah, I had a number not too long ago from CAR as they were offering for us to participate as a California licensed home warranty home service contract provider of around 370,000 a year, something crazy like that. And that's a lot, when you consider that the whole country might have 6 or 7 million. Whoa, that's a lot. And it's a unique market. It's beautiful. There's big mountains. There is recreational marijuana. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, so we have none of this fun stuff. So congrats to you guys for having an awesome state. Now let's talk about the real estate side. And what I'm going to do is we're going to take this just step by step. But before I do that, I'm going to ask you, you got hundreds and hundreds of home inspection companies that somebody could choose from if they didn't choose the Elite Group, and, hundreds of my customers in the state. So, there's certainly differences between home inspection companies. And,
Sure.
If I call you, I'm going to get an answering center. If I call one of our clients on our answering service, they're going to have the phone picked up by a professional office. So there's a certain level of that makes you look good to your client that you referred to a professional organization. Now let's take it to the next step. There is a minimum standard from associations. You have some reference there in your background. Does the Elite Group adhere to the minimal standards of practice from groups like InterNACHI and CREA and ASHI and alike?
Yeah, of course. Like many of our competitors and many inspectors in our industry, we look at all the SOPs of all the different accreditation companies, and we sort of we take those SOPs and we created our own personal out of that SOP, of course, to accommodate our contract, accommodate the flow of our report, and to ensure that we're within the SOPs. And in some cases, a lot of us might, we venture outside of the SOPs sometimes, and so we want to make sure we're very transparent and clear within our report and our contracts and our published SOPs on our website. So, but we kind of blend things together because we want to make sure we're covering everything that we feel is necessary for the inspection.
So even though, these associations with rooms of guys for, decades at a time being super productive and coming up with SOPs, they do that and they come up with this pretty decent SOP. But then if you're at a house and, let's just say there's some blinds, drapes that are, pretty massive ones, those thick ones that look like they're, going to catch on fire at any time, be a part of a horror movie. Those things, you might move them a little bit to check behind them, right?
Correct.
All right.
And
And
there's always some level where you're going beyond the SOPs. the SOPs are just a guidebook for you, but there's always that level where you're always venturing a little bit outside of them.
And that's my point. And this is going somewhere because, to some extent we've done something to ourselves here, and created some confusion at the level of CAR and all of their folks. So let me pull up something real quick. I'm going to pull up the new CAR Home Inspector certification program on the screen. I hope you can see that. So, let's just go line by line here and we can talk through it. So, first of all, they came out with this. I'm not sure in what all regards they, what methodologies they use to get this out there, but they've definitely started a page on their website on car.org for the home inspector certification program. And I want to start with this first paragraph here. It says, for many years, there have been legislative attempts to license property inspectors. And of course, they're referencing maybe some of their own attempts, but also attempts from our industry, from associations and people that have general difficulty agreeing with each other, although we tend to be somewhat on the same page. And then they go on to say, while they have failed for many reasons, CAR has always been opposed to tying the standards to their own governing body and attempts to limit liability. And this is where, I don't look at this and see, oh, here's CAR trying to get involved in a money grab and say, pay me for a certification. Is that a part of it? Maybe some small part of it, but we're talking about a drop in their bucket. I see this as a totally different issue. I see this as a response from, people that aren't involved in transactions every single day, who haven't met an elite group inspector, who don't refer you guys, who haven't seen you go beyond these standards, that if you read them and you go, wow, an inspector can walk into a house, look at one window and never even shove a blind to the side and have an excuse as to why they didn't see what was going on with a window and why they didn't see what was, behind a drapery or behind a curtain. And that's just not reality on the ground, which was my point and why we had that discussion. But if you were only involved from a legislative side and looking for, okay, what kind of writing did the other side, did the home inspection industry want? What they attempted to do, and I mean people from associations, people from legislative groups, what they attempted to do was inject into licensing the minimum standards that allow you to walk over piles of dead rats on your way to check one outlet and one window and leave, and inject a limitation, a statutory limitation of liability of, X amount of dollars, probably something along the lines of the inspection fee, and limit that liability to something that, that couldn't happen if it was, more than 12 months or 24 months after an inspection. So if you were from, sitting on their side and seeing the attempts of our associations to, inject legislation that said you don't have to inspect anything and you're not responsible for crap, you might respond the same way to the issue. Am I wrong, Mike?
No, absolutely. I mean, real estate market in general is a liability game, and we all know that. That's why the documents that are signed for purchasing the home are, as thick as the War and Peace novel. I mean, they've only gotten thicker over the years. But it's a liability game. And when you're fighting against, again, we do have a fragmented industry. Everybody talks about that. There's so many different players out there and there's so many different SOPs. And, one company might be operating from one, the other company's operating for the other, or like the elite group, we take kind of all of them and blend them together. You're getting a different experience. And then when a claim does arise, if you don't have good warranties in place, like we have with you, you don't have good E&O insurance that you're now providing and others provide, claims tend to be a big liability factor, and that somehow will make its way back to the realtor, and the realtor, they're part of this CAR association. And so they're going to they're going to do the same thing I would do with you or with Nick Gramico or with the IGO people as well. Like, if I've got a problem from a home inspection standpoint, we're going to run it up the flagpole and have you guys help us address it. And I think that's probably what's coming out, and where this is sort of stemming from is the real estate market having some experiences that were not pleasant from a claim standpoint, a liability standpoint. We are covered by our SOPs and our contracts, and then therefore that liability and ultimately that bad experience is lying in the realtor's lap. And so they have a couple of those or enough of those. Then what do? They're going to go run that up the flagpole to CAR, and CAR is going to try and step in and help to regulate or figure out the best way to handle it.
Now let's go on to this next part. So, well said. But CAR is taking active steps to implement a statewide private vetting service. It's private. We have 800,000 members or whatever, but it's a very private thing. So that word bugs me a little bit, because that means that they've kind of given themselves an out to reject any inquiries as to how someone ends up on this or not on this. And I'm not saying they're going to do that. There's certainly a practice that might be different than reality. But when you give yourself that kind of word, I kind of write and talk for a living. So, if I had a word like that, I tend not to. But if I had a word like that, like, you better know that, he doesn't know for sure on that thing yet, or he's trying for us, but he has to have a caveat because he just doesn't know. And I think that they're anticipating that they might get some uncomfortable questions on that front, but we want to make sure that they're qualified and that they have the utmost quality. Whoa, all right, this was written by somebody who definitely doesn't understand home inspection, because let's just say that Elite Group and a few hundred of our clients that deliver warranty protection for things like underground sewer lines, roof leaks for 5 years, even structural claims for a period of time, and over 1,500 mechanical and structural issues. Those clients aren't going to have a bad experience. They're going to move in. If something is up, they're going to call you. There's going to be a resolution, some sort of solution that makes it so it was a good experience. 80% of inspectors, they don't offer that. So, when I read this, I'm going, what's the qualification? I think you and I can both admit today, Mike, that, out of the hundreds of inspectors, 80% of which have no warranty coverage, have, delivery disappointing client experience, and their only defense against their own product feature vacancy there is to have a limit of liability and to have a legislated minimal standards of practice. Even those guys dragging their knuckles around, they're pretty good at inspecting, wouldn't you say?
Sure. There's a lot of good inspectors out there, but it is surprising to me, after working with the Elite Group for 10 years and the size and the volume that we do, that there are still people out there not using warranties. I mean, your warranties there's so many benefits to them. We could go on for a little while about them, but
well, I'm saying put the warranties aside. Let's accept that 80% of Californian inspectors don't deliver that level of peace of mind for and protection and legal protection and everything else. But even those guys, I still love them. They're inspectors. They're part of our industry. You'd love to work with them at some point in their careers. But even today, when we have, little in common, no business relationship with, I think we can admit to ourselves that about 100% of inspectors know how to find a reverse polarity outlet, or most of the things, the 95% of things that come up in home inspection, most inspectors are pretty good at finding those things. Couldn't we both agree on that?
Absolutely. If you do your job right, you're looking for everything correctly, you have the right tools, you're a good inspector.
So knowing that, and knowing that there's somebody, and if you scroll down, it's this Edwards Charbonneau, who's the home inspector certification person, he's going to be learning what a home inspection is here very soon. And when he does, and he meets 10,000 home inspectors, he's going to find, a group of people that are, they care, they wake up in the morning to go and find defects. And so this, I go back to this issue of, giving members a choice of qualified home inspectors of the utmost quality that have met our standards. What standards are they? That's a big question. And will they be transparent, or will those standards be applied in that private setting? It goes on to the program includes background checks. Fine. I'm okay with that. That's one part of this I think nobody should have a problem with. This opens the door to inspectors getting access to homes, being qualified by virtue of the background check to access those homes, and maybe creates a more convenient process for all involved. There's no downside there, really. A minimum liability insurance. Minimum? You guys are about to write a policy with a $3 million cap on it, $1 million per occurrence, and a minimum. If we go by any other licensing standards, some of them are as low as 100,000. What kind of insurance policy does Elite Group have today? It used to be a big thing. You guys used to say that a lot.
I think we have a $2 million coverage policy right now.
And most of your competitors, do you have a sense for where their insurance policies land?
The ones that I've spoke to are million or less, and there's still some out there that I know are starting companies that still, I personally believe, I've talked to them, they've coached them through some of the beginning phases, and I don't even think that they have their policy up and running, and they're out doing inspections. So hopefully they don't shoot themselves in the foot with this.
So this is a pro for any home inspector reading this. This is a huge pro. If you run a real business with E&O insurance, with professional liability insurance, and you already pay for an affiliate membership, this is basically driving you towards a statewide affiliate membership in a sense. Well,
I agree with you. First and foremost, this is a pro, and California home inspectors should embrace this, because what used to be in our industry was a very big wedge between the realtor, the real estate community, and the home inspector, and we'd always have to bridge that gap. This to me looks like a step in at least some direction of communication between the car association and the inspection community. And the reason I reached out to you and Nick so quickly was, I think just as you, I was reading that first paragraph thinking, okay, they're making reference to standards, they're making reference to things that maybe they don't know everything about. And that's why I think leadership like us should get involved in this discussion with them and see if they're willing to have an open ear so that we can collaborate on the proper standards and the proper way of making this work. But I do think we should embrace this. It's something that we've needed for a while, is for them to sort of look at us as a partnership, almost a strategic partnership, because we're all working toward the same goal of getting that transaction.
I think, personally, if, I know that inspectors have all been, trained to some extent. I know that they wake up in the morning to meet their, minimum standards with their association. If they're looking for anything that says to California home buyers, utmost quality, boy, I could give them a list of things to look for, or they could go, they could go to your website and start shopping. I think that there are some goods here, and we're focused on a positive here now. Let's keep going. Now they go into that the inspectors are meeting that these vendors, they switch the words to identified vendors, are using best practices in times of COVID-19. So does that mean that you don't lick the door handles?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, all right. So I have just a minor concern here, and then people have heard enough about COVID-19 for the last 12 months, so I don't want to belabor the point. But I read that and I just have a little bit of concern, because it's a sweaty job. You're in Attics, you're in crawl spaces, you're moving around, you are physically active, you do it for 2 to 3 hours on site at every property. Um, Breathing through a mask becomes a little bit of a problem. And reality, folks, the inspector's walking through the house, he's touching everything. Um, I don't know how you, short of putting him in, the spacesuits from Outbreak, keep him from uh, spreading whatever it is that he's got. Hopefully nothing. And you guys do a good job of making sure your inspectors know if they don't feel well, they have a fever, they have indication symptoms, they go home, they get tested.
Absolutely.
I know you do that, and everybody in the industry should. Everybody in life should. Symptoms including that fever. Whoa, put the brakes on. And be courteous to your fellow humans. But but putting a restriction for mask usage, especially when people have cameras inside their homes, etc. They're going to nail you for not doing it. I can't breathe through a mask while I take a swift jog up the stairs at my home. How are your inspectors going to survive with mask on all day? Do they?
They do. In fact, again, as much as I'm embracing this sort of change with CAR, I've also embraced what, as much as the negative side of COVID has brought to us, and this adaptation to all these new standards. Quite honestly, if you really sit back and look at what it's done for us, I mean, how many years have I been inspecting houses and lifting dirty toilet seats and doing things like this and that with my bare hands, not wearing rubber gloves, and how many of my the previous legacy inspectors, and I'm sure there's thousands of them out there, but there's plenty on our staff that have been doing inspections for 10, 20 years, crawling in attics and foundations and not even wearing a mask sometimes. I mean, I think what's happened is that there's been a need for us to sort of look at safety standards differently, and this sort of just forced us to do it. And now, honestly, because of the length of time it's taken, I to this day, we have so many people we're training. I still go out and do inspections, and I've been with a trainee for the past week, just nonstop inspections. And quite honestly, it's not as bad as I originally had thought it was. I have to assume when I get towards the summer, might be a little more difficult as it gets hotter in California, but so far it actually makes me feel more comfortable a little bit doing this. So I think we, again, like every change, you need to embrace it, give it some time, and I think you're going to see the benefits of it in the long run. I don't mind now wearing rubber gloves in the house. It makes me feel cleaner. It makes me feel less like I need to go home and take a 120-degree shower to wash off whatever that person had in their home at that time. So I think there's a lot of benefit to it, and we just have to take it step by step and watch and adapt to it.
Well, all right. Moving on. I hear you. I appreciate it, and I think that it's probably a little good for you to come home with all the weird little viruses you came home with. Certainly hilarious. Uh, now less hilarious. I get that. The but I get messages from inspectors all day long about their guys not being able to take the mask and dealing with heat issues. Now,
Yeah.
for those of you who haven't spent a lot of time in Southern California, I have. There are hot parts and there are little chilly parts. Not that chilly, but chilly enough. So this isn't like South Florida. For those of you in South
Right.
Florida or in Arizona or in the desert that are thinking, man, if I wore a mask for 20 minutes, you'd have to come find me.
Yeah.
This is a little bit different, a different scenario. But let's move on. So in addition, finding home inspectors that maintain liability insurance and are highly educated and trained is necessary to assure the public that they have a qualified home inspector. All right. We're getting back to one thing that I mean, I'm not a big proponent of this because of the confusion that might be. If they don't have high enough standards, if they don't say, this company needs to have a massive E&O plan, this company needs to have warranty protection for that client after they move in, then they really haven't defined any standard that's different than any other association. And here's just another list, except this one is more dangerous, in my opinion. This is where we can debate a little bit. This one's a little bit more dangerous because, people don't know anything about home inspection associations. Nobody's ever heard of Internachi or Kriya or ASHI. Sorry, it's just not a thing. They know that about as much as they're aware of an inspection company's brand when they're not in the process of buying a home. And I don't know about you, but I walk around every once in a while with even a residential warranty services logo on my chest. And just here in Indianapolis and surrounding counties, I have something like 150,000 clients. So I don't wear it at the Colts games. All right. I don't know, maybe they really want to talk to me that day and I'm just hanging out with my kids. But it's not like people stop me at the grocery store. Like they're current clients and they have no idea, and it's a pretty self-evident name. So I think there's a huge difference when you put in front of agents and now have a high risk of confusion and say, here's the car list, because they've heard of car. They're members. They deal with car every single day. So now you have agents in your backyard potentially. Let's use that Remax guy. What's his name? If I guess the name, it would probably offend somebody. Whatever. There's a cool Remax dude that's right down the street from your office. I've spoken at his office, and I'm thinking that his agents probably recommend either one inspector or potentially three, but with a very high promotional level of the first one. Like, hey, they're in an order for a reason. Elite Group's up there. We work with them all the time. If you have a problem, they're going to solve it. Does it become different when they have a list from their association? Does it become here's your menu, I'm out?
Well, again, yeah, again, trying to err on the side of their liability. Of course, they're gonna, that list is gonna shrink, and this is an unfortunate part for some of the smaller one-man operation companies or companies who don't have the time to adapt to this. That's why I really, really want to get involved. As the largest home inspection in California, I'm not here to suppress any of the other guys. In fact, there's plenty, like I told you before, there's plenty of work to go around. And if you want to come work for the Elite Group, get a hold of me and let's talk, because I'd love to have you join the team. But the reality is we're leaders of the industry and we need to get involved here. And that's really the purpose of this Zoom meeting and this YouTube video and my conversation with Nick, is that I just think if we just let other people define what has to happen in our industry from their viewpoint, we are going to create a problem. They're going to create a problem, and then it's going to be a battle again, and we're going to have this wedge between us. So, yeah. It's unfortunate, but I think it's also fortunate. It's good that they're paying attention now, and it's time to have this conversation and bring everybody to the table.
Well, now we get to the last paragraph of this announcement before the instructions on how to get with CAR and pay them some money. One last paragraph, and it basically says, I'll just summarize it. We're going to look for some of those association standards and some of the schools and the stuff that already exists out there. Well, wait a second. That stuff already exists. There's already a badge. There's already a round logo. Guys like Nick, guys like me, we created all these ways to verify that your inspector meets a certain standard. And after all that buildup, which largely had just, hey, we're going to do things better, then we go right back to the standards that already exist. So now I'm back to kind of what's the point?
Yeah. I mean, that's the unfortunate piece of that whole entire announcement is these standards already exist. You guys have vetted them and worked really hard to make them better over the years. And I just think, again, going back, I know I'm going in circles here, but like the bottom line is we need to get involved. We need to find out who this person is or who our contact is. And we just need to get involved and start saying, hey, this is affecting our industry. We're happy that you guys want to talk about it. Let's get together and let's make this right. Because, we know why they're getting involved. We talked about that earlier, right? There's liability issues that aren't getting covered and they're trying to protect their agents. So we're all working towards the same goal. We all need to we just need to start talking. I think that's really what this is, an open conversation. It's not it should be like an eye opener for those guys who have been skating by without associations, without standards, or without even, their own personal standards of a good quality customer experience. But this is just more writing on the wall. It's time, other people are taking note of this. Let's get
So,
involved.
so this would not be the case in most, if not almost every state out there. But
Correct.
what I think I just heard you say, because again, I look at this and think, there is no way if especially if I'm a company like the Elite Group, if I'm a leader in a local market, if I'm the leader in Roseville, California, if I'm, the leader in Santa Cruz, stopping by the Dream Inn and getting yelled at by those SEALs or whatever they are, in between my inspectors. Uh, if I'm one of those guys and I'm the leader and I'm seeing this, I'm going, wow, the minute this is done, that little guy down the street, assuming he can afford a decent E&O program, assuming he can afford the fee, assuming he isn't so, you know, uh, against this, that he just doesn't even go through the process, he's going to end up on a list and look very much equivalent to my company, to my bigger company, that supports many more families like the Elite Group does with 81 inspectors as of today. So what I think I heard you say though was, hey, yeah, that part sucks, but in California, there is a very large group of inspectors. I tend to think it's a little smaller than your math would help you with, but maybe I'm wrong. That there's a lot of inspectors that are not properly trained, not part of inspectors, completely, not really a part of the home inspection industry in the way that you and I think about it. They're out there, they've hung their shingle, and unfortunately, because there's no legitimate list that agents recognize, because the associations failed to get them there, well, now they go to wherever. And as soon as those guys evaporate, that you believe you might even see a higher market share. Is that a fair assessment?
That's absolutely fair assessment. And to your first point, even if there's a little guy or a smaller company that gets on this list, I welcome that from the Elite Group side. I know that sounds kind of counterproductive, but there's to me, there's positivity in competition. And at the end of the day, if there's a guy down the street that's doing a good job and he's done everything right, he deserves to be on that list. He should be on the list. I want to think about our industry as a whole, and I try not to be overly competitive as a company. We've got a big ship here. We have a lot of families to feed, and I welcome any company out there that is tired of running around marketing and trying to get their phone to ring to give us a call and see about joining our team, because I care about the industry and I care about the quality of the industry. And that's really what we're trying to do here at the Elite Group. We've got over 5,000 five-star reviews. Our inspectors are autonomous, and they have a passion for the company, but they have a passion for the entire transaction who they affect. So, I welcome competition. I think it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something to embrace, just as if any of these changes come in, even with the COVID stuff. Like, going back to that, I know I don't want to circle around to it again, but the one downfall to wearing the mask that I've seen so far is just the communication. The unfortunate part about our job is that we want to be able to communicate and talk about the good things in the house, as much as there are maybe some bad things in the house, but that has changed our communication level. Now we're doing Zoom calls, on the side or in our spare time. And it also, on a positive side, has forced more people to really read their report a little bit. So again, there's always like, a good and bad with everything. And so the communication part kind of, not so fun, because it's hard to talk and hear anybody with a mask. But on the other side, you're still getting that communication, and more people are paying attention to what you write now. And that's actually a good feeling.
Well, so I have to tell you, I think I'm still against it. There's some offsets. There's some, there's the access issue. There's, pushing that E&O up, getting that background done, getting the guys that really just have no qualifications at all outside of the ecosystem. Let's see, push them out. Okay, so that's good. I'm not sure your math will work out there, but I'll tell you this. Now, this could be coincidence, but let's assume it's not. Based on this news, based on this new link, based on this recorded Zoom meeting right now, we're gonna publish this. It'll be live here in minutes. the company Procter and Gamble, which makes the popular product, that pink stuff, Pepto-Bismol,
Hmm.
it is up 1.05% because inspectors in California are shitting themselves right now. They're going to have so much, diarrhea, bloating, etc. I'm telling you to go long on P&G right now. It's got a 2.47% dividend. It's a good thing. You look at the 5-year chart on this thing. It's like, it's not crazy like everything else. And gosh, with the way this is going, with the way car is scaring the actual crap out of home inspectors, where they're just going to sell a ton of Pepto-Bismol. There's going to be a run on it. Walmart lines are going to be long. So be prepared for that. Mike, it's been a pleasure as always. Last words, or you done?
No, I think honestly, we should do more of this, Nathan. Honestly, I've been meaning to call you in a while. I just had a great review with my operations manager about everything when it comes to claims. And honestly, man, we should talk more often. We've gotten so much benefit working with your warranties that I had a great meeting yesterday, just realizing the amount of not only time that you have saved us, but quite honestly, the feedback now that we can provide our team only makes us better inspectors. And you're going to find Paul Lister, my director of operation, be reaching out to Michael Doer. We're going to have a lot more conversations about the commonalities between these claims, because we want to make sure that the more feedback we provide our team, the better inspectors they become. And so it was a really powerful meeting we had the other day about that. And if the people are not using your warranties, I just don't understand how they're taking this feedback and utilizing it for good. You take a lot off of our plate when it comes to time and dealing with these things, and you add so much more to how we can build a better company by giving us the time to take that data and turn it into something positive. So for anybody out here listening, you guys need to get with Nathan and start really considering his warranties. They are hugely helpful.
Well, there is a possibility that if this continues, if there becomes a list of car inspectors, and now it's on a higher level. Now we're starting at a higher level. We're starting at a higher place. We're starting at legitimate businesses with good backgrounds, with E&O. Man, the process you'll have to go through to differentiate yourself between not just like fictional companies, but the real ones. Maybe this is the best thing that ever happened to inspectors in California. Time will tell. Mike Speirs, thank you, sir. You're a gentleman.
Take care, everyone. Thanks, Nathan.